Hey everybody, I just got version 12.3.3 downloaded. It's the supervised version of Tesla's full self-driving rather than the old beta version, and I'm excited to try it out. This is my first time trying it. Version 12.3 was pretty good, but I've been hearing that 12.3.3 is a slight improvement, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it does. I'm going over to Topgolf. It should be about half an hour away. Let's get going. Okay, quite a bit of hesitancy coming out of the parking spot. That's okay. Fortunately, there's very few people around. And as far as settings go, I have it set to average, and then also automatic set speed offset is toggled on, which basically means that it's going to take into consideration the surrounding environment, the cars, the weather, and just get a general sense of what's going on around the vehicle to determine which speed is optimal to go at. So previously, like, you would have to set your max speed to, let's say, 5% above the speed limit. Now that's not the case. And I'm excited for that because it's just one step closer to getting the full self-driving to a place that matches what a human would normally do. Okay, so a little hesitancy coming out of that parking spot and then getting to this point, but now it seems like it's behaving pretty normally. Okay, came to a full stop. Did a good job of taking this roundabout at a speed that mimics very closely what I would have done. An appropriate speed over those two speed humps. And there's no stop sign here. It slowed down more than I would have, but still okay. Just erring on the side of caution. It's a beautiful day here in Arizona. I'm in the greater Phoenix area. Ooh, that was good. That was an appropriate amount of time to yield at that roundabout. Previously, it would not do that. It would come to a very complete stop, be overly cautious, and wait for a couple seconds, and then go. So that's a notable improvement over version 12.3. Going back to what I was saying, I'm excited to be back in Arizona. It's a beautiful day here. 82 degrees out, a little bit on the warmer side, and just nice and dry and sunny with gorgeous terrain, beautiful palm trees, a lot of succulents, a lot of cactus, and that green contrast against the brown and red ground and rocks is just absolutely gorgeous in my view. So far so good on this drive. Nothing super notable besides the good behavior around that roundabout. My natural inclination would be to lean more on the right side of that road right there and get into the bike lane, but that was still a good natural right turn other than that. I love that it got up to a speed of 51 rather than getting to 45 and then slowly creeping up to above 45. Felt super natural. Good acceleration profile there. Nice lane change at an appropriate time. There's nobody behind us in this lane for quite some time, so it made it at a good time and did not cut off anybody. Whereas in prior versions, specifically in 12.2 and 12.3, I noticed that a lot of times it would cut off people And sometimes I would be in assertive mode, so it was a little bit more acceptable. But on occasion, it would just cut off the person quite abruptly, and it never felt super unsafe, but it felt uncomfortable because the person in back of us could have been in a bad mood and started driving recklessly afterwards. So right here, coming up to the stop behind this vehicle in front of us, it was pretty passive. It started braking much earlier than I would have, and then slowly crept up to this Mazda. That's very typical behavior from what I've seen with all of version 12s. In version 11, it did not do that, but it was way worse in plenty of other scenarios. So overall, I think version 12 is a step forward in most aspects of the self-driving. There are some things that it's doing worse, but I'm optimistic that they're going to improve it over time. That last lane change that it did was really natural. Felt like it knew exactly what it wanted to do and then executed it at an appropriate time at the right speed. I loved that lane change. Good amount of deceleration there and good acceleration back up to speed. The guy behind us was pretty close, so it did a good job of braking assertively and not super aggressively, but assertively. I don't know if I distinguished that well, but basically if it did it too abruptly, then the guy behind us probably would have, oh, so this is interesting. It definitely had space to get into the left lane, and now it's just kind of tailgating this guy in front of us. That was an odd behavior. I wish it either committed to changing lanes or didn't make that maneuver at all. That was a little bit odd. I've not experienced that before with version 12. I'm gonna do my best to just generally let the car do what it's wanting to do. I have a pretty high threshold for what I'm willing to be a passenger to the car in. So if there are some scenarios that are kind of close, I think I'm willing to let it go further than most people would. Okay, this is cool. There's a bus that's stopped at this railroad, and it had a spot. It could have just gone very aggressively. Okay, now is a good spot. Nice. That was decent. I'm not sure if you guys could see it, but there's a little bit of wiggle with the steering wheel, and therefore the car, with when it had an opportunity to go. Oh, this is a cool spot. There's a bus that stopped on the other side of the road, and these vehicles on our side and their side are appropriately stopping. I'm very curious to see what the Tesla would have done if we were the first ones leading this pack in this direction, if it would have appropriately stopped. That's a super obscure, unusual scenario. Maybe not obscure, an unusual scenario that I would love to see a video of, catching a Tesla in action on full self-driving. Anyway, it did a pretty good job there. Not perfect, but still quite good for a mere mortal computer. So I got this car at the end of 2020, December 28th, 2020. Therefore, it's a 2021 Tesla Model Y. White interior, white exterior, one of the things that I've enjoyed seeing over time is these visualizations have improved dramatically since the beginning of getting full self-driving. When I first got the beta version, the visualizations I think were one step above the dots. So sometimes you'll see on X there are people who are posting old videos of Tesla's full self-driving where the visualizations were literally just like a bunch of dots and then boxes that were comprised of dots to indicate that there was a vehicle like in the lane next to you or in front of you. Now it's obviously way different. These cars are rendered like actual cars. They take the shape of the car that they actually are, and they show brake lights. They show many more of the features of actual vehicles, and they distinguish between semi-trucks and trucks and vans and all sorts of stuff like that. And then the gray lines indicate where there are substantial obstacles or borders where there's no longer drivable road. I think that's a key distinction that probably a lot of other driver assistance technologies aren't able to distinguish. Because obviously, like, there are some instances where you have to drive on land that is not normally used for driving, but you would have to drive on it, and you have to know, in the worst case scenario, like in an emergency, do you have an out to that drivable land, even though it's not technically considered road, versus if there's like a 6-inch curb or a 12-inch, 8-inch curb or whatever, then you would not want to drive on that, even in a pretty severe emergency. And then of course, if there's like a physical wall, you don't want to be driving into that ever. Also cool that the signals are shown on the visualizations, the speed limits are shown on the visualizations, construction zone cones and some other signage are also shown. Pets I've seen I think dogs are shown now. And then I also saw on on Easter, there was, so we should be getting to the right lane here. I'm just gonna disengage because I don't want these cars to get mad at me for jumping the lane. It's definitely okay to have been in that lane, but out of courtesy for these other cars, I've just decided to disengage. So a specific note there is that it's not a safety critical disengagement. It was merely a comfort and courtesy disengagement. And then here again, this behavior of braking too soon and then slowly creeping up to the car in front of us. I really want that to get ironed out by the next update. Same thing I've noticed with approaching a stop line at an intersection. Even if there wasn't this Tacoma in front of us, I've noticed that it will still do the same behavior of braking super early and then slowly creeping up to the stop line. It very much feels like this is an easy fix. Obviously, the work that Tesla engineers have gone under to get to this point is way above my head, but I'm hopeful that they'll be able to update and fix this soon. Very natural acceleration there. Yeah, just overall feeling superhuman-like coming off of intersections nowadays. love that that's the case. And a lot of this stuff is so nuanced, like you can't truly feel it until you're driving in the car. I mean, until you're riding in the car. But it's never felt that smooth coming off of an intersection before. It's never felt that natural. Let's show you guys the map again. We're currently heading west. We're going to be heading north up to Topgolf. Let's see how it does getting onto this freeway freeway on-ramp. This one's interesting because you got to get over, I believe, quite quickly. Oh, maybe this is... Oh, this is a different on-ramp than I'm thinking of. It's kind of interesting that the less bad and less amazingly good things that come up in these drives, the less there is to talk about. Okay, pretty good. I would have crept up much earlier when it was a red light, but when it turned green, it felt super confident, knew what to do, and just did it. That was safe and good acceleration onto this on-ramp. It didn't exactly mimic what I would have done, but those small nuances of trying to match my specific acceleration profile versus like any other driver it's gonna take a while, I think. Obviously every human driver drives differently, so it's difficult to really truly match exactly what my preferences are. But anyway, it just wasn't like one smooth acceleration. It was accelerate quickly, coast for a little bit, and then accelerate again. And you could almost feel like the car was thinking about getting up to a good speed, and then it was at that speed on the straightaway, and then it realized, okay, we're on a freeway on-ramp, we gotta accelerate more. Hopefully in the future it'll just be more of one seamless movement, one seamless acceleration. So good on the freeway, maintaining a comfortable following distance from the car in front of us. Did a good lane change there. My biggest frustration with version 11 was that every time it would change lanes on the freeway, it would brake and then change lanes. And sometimes in the same movement, and it felt not only extremely unnatural, but oftentimes it would just cut off the person in the destination lane. So like, for example, on the left right here, there's somebody following kind of in our blind spot, but a little bit behind us. It would signal to change lanes, brake, and then cut them off in the worst way. Versus version 12 doesn't do that so far. So I'm just very thankful to get rid of that behavior from version 11. shoot, and it did it at an appropriate speed. Driving at a max speed of 72 miles an hour right now is appropriate, and the following distance behind this guy in front of us is very comfortable. And I think we're in the correct lane. We're going a little bit slow relative to the cars to the right of us, but because there's kind of a bottleneck in front of us, I think it's okay. In California, because I have the electric vehicle or fuel efficient vehicle, I'm able to go in the carpool lane just by myself. Right now in Arizona, I don't think that's ever possible for fuel efficient vehicles. I think it's only when you have two or more people in the vehicle. So unfortunately no carpool lane for us, but also fortunately there's not as much traffic in Arizona as there is in California. Yeah, this just feels super natural. I feel incredibly safe. I've long felt incredibly safe driving on the freeway. There, it was a little bit cautious going behind that motorcycle. I think to some degree deservedly so, but the fact that he was signaling to everybody over here means that he was obviously aware that we're coming, so probably didn't mean to brake, but forgivable behavior. Yeah, so as I was saying, I love how it drives on the freeway. I feel incredibly safe, very comfortable. Version 11 was the one that I didn't love on the freeway, although I felt extremely safe. It was just annoying and uncomfortable that it would cut off people. But in version 10 and version 12, and I think also there was a version 9 that I was part of. But anyway, regardless, every other version has been excellent on the freeway. Even when I don't have full self-driving toggled on, even when I have just the regular autopilot, I would have been willing and am still willing to fall asleep in the car. You know, obviously that's not acceptable right now, but would I be willing to do it? Absolutely. I should express my gratitude and appreciation for the hard work that the Tesla team has been doing to get the self-driving up to this point. I know this is an extremely difficult, super technical engineering and programming challenge. So I recognize that when I'm giving this feedback about how the car is doing, I never would be able to, or I would not be able to do this. Like, I wouldn't be able to get the car to this point. So it's with that recognition that I'm giving this feedback. I'm just generally a Tesla supporter. Like, I give other friends who have never experienced the Tesla full self-driving, I give them rides all the time, and they range from a mix of total shock and awe to like just like amazement at like there's total shock and awe in the fact that this is possible, but then there's also some people who are amazed that it's gotten to this point and other people don't know, and or that they didn't know. And I share that sentiment a lot of times. Like it's tough for a lot of us because we're in this kind of Tesla bubble, especially on X, where we're constantly tracking the progress of what's going on. But for others who, like, they've never had a Tesla, their friends and family don't have a Tesla, then the likelihood that this technology ever comes across their radar is super low. So it's kind of up to all of us to be supporters of the company, be supporters of this safety technology, and get the word out to as many people as we can. That wasn't the primary intent of creating this video, but I think that's a nice that is a nice effect of it. Like, if I create this video and people recognize for the first time that, hey, this Tesla is literally driving on its own for 99% of the drive, then that recognition could play a big effect in somebody deciding to be more interested in following Tesla, or getting a Tesla, or encouraging others to try out Teslas. There's kind of this moment right now, and basically for the last decade, where, and it'll probably continue for another decade, where we just need to all be planting seeds in the heads of people that Tesla full self-driving exists, and just the fact that that seed gets planted means that it has a little bit of time to like sprout, and people can start to become a little bit more curious over time, or they can start to just literally just track the progress a little bit more. Or maybe it means they follow somebody like Sawyer or Omar on X, and then they start to become more part of this community where they're following the amazing tech that Tesla's developing. Looks like we're about 2 miles away. The driving on the freeway so far has felt extremely natural for 98+% of the drive, and I've felt safe the entire time. Absolutely could have fallen asleep. The one anecdote was this past summer I drove with my mom, just she and I, in this car from the Southern California area up to Edmonton, Canada, just kind of like near Alberta and Banff. It's north of Montana for all you Americans that are horrendous at geography. Anyway, it's a very long trip. We deliberately took our time, and we tried to make sure that we stopped in every major city and experienced what that city had to offer. So we did the trip over around 2 weeks, and most of it was using Tesla's FSD. Some of it was just using Tesla's regular autopilot, and for the entire trip it felt super comfortable, very relaxing, and it just took a lot of the stress away from my mom when she was driving, and myself obviously, but from my mom in particular, because she was not super used to having this technology. But it convinced her enough to know that the next car that she's gonna get is a Tesla. And I think that's a real game changer. I think for a lot of, she's like 60 something years old, for a lot of the boomers, if they don't have a first-hand experience for quite a long duration where they're sitting in a Tesla that's driving itself and they get to really realize how little stress there is and how little attention you have to pay because the Tesla's driving is just that's the real game changer. Is when that happens, they just recognize, they realize that, wow, this is a big deal. And the fact that they're willing to pony up, potentially, I don't know, anywhere from like $35,000 to $100,000 on a vehicle, that's how stress relieving it is. That's how much of a game-changing feature it is. How much of a game-changing product it is. Okay, so that off-ramp was well executed. Picked the appropriate lane, went at the appropriate speed, turned into this lot, and I'm gonna see if it's willing to park itself, and if it's not, then I'm gonna see if I can use the parking feature. Okay, so far, excellently done. Good speed, feeling very safe. Yep, just super good. Just total kudos. Nice. If it was my Uber driver, it'd be 5 stars. Okay, looks like it's, well, it keeps turning the wheel a little bit. Okay, but it looks like it stopped. I'm gonna click the accelerator to resume. Let's see how it does. Okay, well, it looks like it stopped there. Let's see, I'm gonna get out of its way. It did an excellent job. One disengagement that wasn't safety critical. It was merely for comfort. And beautiful day here in Arizona. Let me know in the comments if you have any feedback, comments, questions, suggestions for what I should show in the next drive. And thank you all for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Bye-bye.